That was the days. Those were the days when they just wouldn't operate without, you're not doing this properly.
Right.
So I'm afraid that I can't help you at all.
I need Blackburst for my timing or I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Have you selected the correct time code?
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to stop, guys. You can just keep talking. We're past the stopping thing for the starting.
Past the silence thing.
Yeah, we're past the silence thing. We've moved on.
But we're so well trained.
I know we're gonna have to untrain ourselves. All right.
Alex,
we're
you're coming
past
in
the
maybe a
silence,
DB
will
or
we still
two
remember
low.
the
Sorry.
silence?
Say that, Mickey.
You're coming in maybe a DB or two low. Oh, it's a
I'm so
an H6
confused.
kind of day.
It's an H6 kind of day. Yeah, I'm I'm on a different pipe. No, but this hasn't changed at all. Anyway, I see when I'm looking at it and I'm talking here, I see it running pretty close to 20 right now. So I'm not. Let's see. Let me turn it up a little bit. All right. Hey everybody. Hey everybody, welcome to Office Hours. If you are on YouTube and you see the little number down below and or the little link down below, you can join the actual conversation in Zoom. If you're here as an attendee, and you're wondering how all these panelists showed up and how they got here early, except for Chris Fenwick. He got here late, so we let him in anyway. But generally you have to be here by 6:40 in the morning. The reason sometimes I let people in late because I realized I didn't check before I left. As soon as I walk away, but if I go, oh, I didn't check, I don't know, then I let them in if they're regular. But that's the only otherwise. Nobody gets in after we start mic checks. Anyway, so we open the doors at 6 o'clock. From 6 to 6:40, it's wide ranging. We talked about technical things. We talked about people. We talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, and then we talked about meeting people that we hadn't seen for a long time. So it goes all over the place every morning. It's a fun conversation. But at 6:40, we start to get serious and we do mic checks. At 8 o'clock, or 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, we start doing general Q&A. And for this week, we're just going to be doing general Q&A every day. So this will be 2 hours of general Q&A. Usually we have specific verticals, which we will go back into next week. But this week will be 2 hours of just us talking. So that's except for Saturday, which will be education. And so in that time, you as the attendees drive the show. So if you see the question, the stock of questions getting a little low, it's your opportunity to ask a question and have us talk about it. We can't promise that we'll have all the right answers, but we can promise that we will cover it and chat about it. But you drive it not only with your questions. If you don't have a question, keep track of those. Just take a look at it and vote on those questions. Your votes drive the run of show when we talk about these things. So it's really important that you stay involved in that. And so a reminder that Apple is doing an event next week, which we will most likely do that was announced right after the end of our event yesterday. I wonder if they timed it that way. Anyway, so they're going to do an event next week, and we will do a simulcast. The second ear experience is what we call it. And so a bunch of us will talk and chat about it while it's going on live. So put that in your calendar, and we'll figure that out next week. And without further ado, we'll get Bill to start asking questions.
Well, we've got really good questions today. I particularly like the first one from our own Doug Ferguson here in the panel. So when is quality going to matter in the new media world we are in?
Well, it slowly evolves, is what I would say. So things start off as messy, as people start doing them. People are just happy to be there. And this is kind of the way it is for all things in life, is that things start off and the first people there aren't doing it very well, and they're just trying to figure it out, and everyone's just happy to be there. And then after that, people start to refine. So if you look at YouTube, if you look at YouTube from 2005 to now, the quality change in the content that is successful is much different. And it is, and it's a much different approach. It's much higher resolution. It's much tighter, than it was. It was horrible content, 15 years ago on YouTube. And so same thing with TikTok. When TikTok started, very low quality, but you're starting to see there's still some people who are able to get away with just dancing in front of a camera, but there is a lot of high quality video that is going, people are putting a lot of work into it. I've done some TikToks for others and a couple TikToks with my kids. I can tell you that every one of those TikToks is a lot of work. And and especially the ones that start to look really good, and the time lapses and the stuff that they're showing on how to put things together, it's a lot of work. And so, in the same sense, it's our job is to keep on moving that bar up. As far as what we do when we do something as an example, if you look at the, when Dolby did what they did last week, that moves the bar of what's expected up a lot. And that puts everybody on notice. That we're going to keep moving that forward bar, and then typically people with the funds to move that forward bar will go first, and then other people will come up behind them, because you just at some point the delta between what is considered the high bar and what someone's doing has to get closed, or they'll be seen as less than. So for brands, that becomes a big deal. And so, so our job is just to keep on moving that bar forward and showing people what's possible. I think that is when people see it. Again, we talk about this. I talk about this all the time. Is action occurs when possibility is greater than action, or greater than circumstance. When people see something that they go, "Oh, I want that." I want something to be better. That it's hard to say. I always joke. Anyone's seen Hudsucker Proxy? It's round for kids. Like this guy's walking around trying to talk to people. He's making a hula hoop, and it's like, it's round for kids, and no one understands the hula hoop. And then suddenly people start to use it, and it's everywhere, right? And so you want to think about that. If you ever hear me say it's round for kids, I'm trying to explain something that doesn't exist yet, but it'll be important when it does. And so you want to keep, what we can do as creators is to continue to improve our craft and continue to, look for examples that we can keep on, not be satisfied with whatever we could just get out. And then you have to show it to your clients. But once your clients get used to it, it's really hard for them to go back too. If you're doing that and you're improving that quality, they'll go to somebody else and it'll feel less than, and they'll just feel like, that I really, went down a couple spots. And if they don't notice that, then they probably weren't going to be your client. Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, maybe we'll find out next week. But do you think the hardware manufacturers, the laptop manufacturers, are going to start putting higher quality camera chipsets built into the laptops now, so that since everybody's streaming a lot from distance learning and everything else from their laptops, I
doubt it.
You don't think they're going to stay the cheap 720p max?
Maybe they'll go to 1080, but it'll never be the same quality as a Brio, because that's going to add a huge amount to the MSRP. And of limited, there's only a certain number of people doing that, and really the people who are serious about it, who care about it, are going to buy an external camera. And so I think that there's I don't think that the people who are going to use the camera on their computer are not going to be. It just doesn't. I don't think it makes it. They're not going to make a decision about whether they're buying that computer based on that camera.
Well,
and I think that
they could put the same chips that are in the iPhones or the Samsung high-end phones. They would fit in there, and there's definitely a much higher.
I don't know if they would fit in there. I don't know. I don't think they could fit. I don't think they could fit the iPhone into a Mac.
Well, they'd get over there. It's the thinnest Mac ever.
I just think but I think that the math is against that. They may put a 1080p camera into the newer ones. I mean, that would be a really interesting thing to do. But then I still think it will be grainy, and it won't have the same low light performance. And I think that if you're serious about it, you'll end up not doing that. I've thought about that process a lot. And for us, we don't even want people to do it, because if it's on their computer, there's all this stuff with the computer, and there's all these things we have to manage. We really want we would, even if Apple put out a 1080p camera, we'd still want an external one, because we can do more with it and place it better and not have it on the same desk and do all those other things that we want to do. Stuart?
Directly to Courtney's point, you can already specify higher end cameras, especially on the Lenovo laptops. The real problem is they still keep putting them on crazy wide angle lenses, and you end up with an image that looks like, well, the dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the real issue is that, and we saw this with the 3DO or the VDO 360, is for what we're doing now, what we need is 55 to 60 degrees of field of view. The wide angle is not, because what we're trying to do is have a personal connection, this connection here. We're not trying to have a room connection. And so the real problem with a lot of these, the 4K ones work okay that way, because you can zoom in. but overall, most of these cameras are wider than we want them to be. It distorts people's faces, and it makes it they have to a wider angle camera means the person has to dress more of their room, and so when everybody's on it, it becomes much more of a pain, to give us a wide angle lens. But 55 to 60 degrees is what I think a lot of people. Somebody needs to put out like a 1-inch, 1-inch chip. I mean, that's what the Precision HD was years ago, 8 years ago or 9 years ago, 1-inch chip, and it was only 720, but it was still a great camera at the time. Go ahead, Mickey, and then Jason.
Yeah, I think like quality has always mattered. It's just like as Alex mentioned it, it's a perceived value that clients put to the quality that they could get, and they don't appreciate the quality until they've experienced it. I think one thing that's great about like us, the smaller guys, like as opposed to like the big networks, is we can iterate much more quickly than they could. They have antiquated broadcasting systems that take a lot of resources to push down the line in terms of quality. Us, we can move so much more quickly, the smaller guys at least.
I think a discussion you hear a lot now is how do the broadcasters keep up with VOD? They're trying to figure out how do we keep up with VOD rather than VOD being this little poster size thing. Because now VOD is sitting at, well, not VOD, but just anything online, OTT over the set top box is now 4K and can be Vision and Atmos and can have all these other things that it's very hard to do for a broadcaster. And so, the game is really ours now. Like we can press this situation down the path, and we as a group are probably better positioned than most to cross-pollinate that knowledge of how to do it. And it may sound crazy, but with a group the size of ours, we can have a significant impact on how things move forward from a quality perspective as we talk to the many clients that all of us work with and take the things that we've learned and make a lot of this stuff better. It starts to have a chain reaction. When in the Dolby Summit last week, when a vice president from EVS says this is the best online event that I've seen, this is, that's going to have an impact. People are going to be thinking about it, and a bunch of people there, and then it's just a chain reaction that starts to happen. Go ahead, Jason.
I don't think it's crazy at all that a group this size with the technical acumen and depth of collectively the office hours crew's knowledge could move the bar, because the nice thing about the internet, we complain that everybody has a megaphone on the internet, but it does go two ways. It also means that broadcasters collectively can make a huge impact, like just lickety split and collectively raise the bar worldwide.
Yeah, I don't know if the broadcasters will be able to keep up. I mean, I think that they're in a.
Well, they haven't.
They're in a sinking ship that they're trying to figure out how to put all the fires out. I know that sounds rough, but it's. I think that they're going to have a hard time keeping. In other countries, they'll do fine, but the cord cutting is intensifying in most of the Western world, and also there's some places, and I think that. All over the world, the cord cutting is increasing, but I think that there's some places where broadcast still makes sense because there's just not a lot of there's a lot of people that are still dealing with this. They have to still watch terrestrial TV. They don't have the internet. They don't. That makes sense. I know when we're in Africa, you couldn't cord cut in Rwanda just because the bandwidth would be too expensive to do that. So you're still watching some broadcast, but I think that you're going to see that continue to intensify. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like at least here, where our local networks here are pretty darn horrible. Yeah, I would say like the extremely low budget Zoom events that my team has put together. They looked and sounded way better than any Zoom or Skype guest that's come into the local networks, and it's just they're sitting on their laurels, and they're going away pretty soon.
Yeah, Jason.
Apologies for my non sequitur, but didn't Rwanda skip the cord? Like, didn't they go straight to cellular?
No, they have fiber through a lot of the country. They fiber the whole country. So Rwanda has
even better.
Yeah. So and then the government owns all the fiber to the last mile, and then they let the cell providers and internet providers do the last mile. And that they did that because no one else could put 100 in a small African country, put $150 million into an infrastructure. So they invested in it. And then the government plans to do, I don't know if they started doing it yet, but they're going to divest themselves from it, slowly by selling off shares into it until they're gone. So they took the risk for the country, so that helped jumpstart the process. The problem really
Wish our
is
country would do that.
yeah, it'd be harder to do. They're very small. It's a dense country.
Of course.
So the heads per mile is very very high in Rwanda, which is what caused a lot of the troubles in the past, but it also gives it an advantage when it comes to infrastructure. Go ahead, Courtney, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I was just going to say ATSC3 may deal with some of this as well, because it also includes streaming protocol.
Yep.
And we'll see. And it's going to be rolling out in the next year or two.
Yep, we'll see. The next question.
So Gabriel Ung is here with an interesting thing about latency and a whole bunch of other stuff. He's been asked if it's possible to have a live band perform on the main stage, and at the same time, dancers are performing to that music a mile away as they cruise downriver, I guess on a barge, to the main stage. The catch is we're to live stream the dance that's happening on the barge back to the screen where the musicians are playing. Is this possible? And note, is it possible to have the musicians' audio and the dancers' video in sync?
Go ahead, Stuart.
Yes, it's possible. I could probably do that with vMix and some Ubiquity network gear for an NDI signal going backward and forward. And from there, the price goes up according to how better you want it to look.
I don't think you keep it
into Alex level gear.
I don't think you keep it in sync though. I don't think I don't.
Sync issues
I
is
can
what it
adjust
means.
the sync in vMix.
No, but it's live.
Can't adjust the sync of the stage. That's the real issue.
I
is to
mean, we
pipe
have
it
enough trouble
back.
keeping it in sync in the same room. just the video in the same room would be hard. You can't lose more than a frame or two, to have that work, and you're going to lose more than that getting to the boat and getting back a mile away over wireless. It's gonna be, I don't know, hundreds of milliseconds. That'll be a problem. Greg, and then, go ahead, Greg, and then Victor. Oh,
I think you could have both. You could have the dancers dancing to the track. I mean, I don't see any reason for them having to see each other. You could
have a
you
live
could pull
band
that
on
off.
stage, though.
If
The
you-
live
if you-
band is playing.
I'm sorry.
The live band is playing. There's no track. It's a
there'd
live
have to
band
be.
Well,
That's
performing.
the thing.
The
It's
track
live
that they're
event.
creating.
They'd have to have a click track. They'd have to have a click track, a global click track that would tie
and
them
a
together.
lot of rehearsal.
But the problem
Yeah.
is that, they just dance to dancers dance to the music and the players play to the click track, and it'll sync. That
Exactly.
part, the two going to the boat will be fixed. The getting back is still the video of them getting back is, just that 1 point transport is going to be, unless you're, because you have to have, if you had fiber to the boat, you might be able to do it. You might, a mile of fiber, you might be able to get, you might be able to get it there. But if you do anything that's transporting it, you're going to start losing significant numbers of frames, and it's going to look off. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, what's your budget like? Because in terms of getting the band audio to the dancers on the boat, you can set up FM transmission for that, and you for a mile, like even a 3-watt transmitter, or if you want to go like 5 or 10 watts, you could do that. And for getting the video of the boat back, if you could put multiple receivers, like say set up a Teradeck transmitter on the camera or cameras, and have multiple receivers along the shore of the river, feeding fiber lines back to your master control room, then that's something that's doable, but budget.
But you can't turn it into digital and keep enough frames. That's the real problem. Go ahead, Stuart, and then Victor.
I'm almost thinking that a older analog UHF link would actually do it easier with less delay or sync issues than you would with any digital system.
It's a good point.
If you can find the licensed, you need the licensed. There is a the company that we would use to do that, if someone asked us, is a company called 3G Wireless. They're in, I know it's an odd name because it's 3G and we're way past 3G, but they're called 3G Wireless. They're out of Maryland, and they do NASCAR. And if someone was going to figure out how to transmit it, they have their own frequencies. so the I mean, they've licensed their own frequencies. So that kind of wireless, may get you there, but I still think you couldn't go there and back. And you'd have to have them you have to figure out a global click track to get that working really well. I mean, you could get it working, but it'll be a kludge. Again, it's a kludge in the room oftentimes. Just the camera going to the projector, you lose a couple frames and it becomes a problem. I mean, and so we get over it watching concerts, but it really isn't very much. There's a huge amount of work that we do to keep that latency super low. I mean, making sure that everything's on reference, making sure that everything, like when we're doing a concert or working on something like that, is an enormous amount of work just to get the cameras to line up in the room to the screen. And so going from a mile away is a different set of problems. Go ahead, Victor. Now, what I will say is streaming it would be fine. I mean, you could sync one to the other and then stream it out from that endpoint. Like if you're streaming from that to an external audience, it's the bringing it back into the screen and having it sync up is the part that's hard. Go ahead, Victor.
Okay, I won't speak to the sync because I don't know, but wouldn't this be a great case for the streaming bridge in an ATEM?
No, it'll take too long. We're talking frames. Like we're not, and it's going to be. I don't know what the delay is. I mean, Jeffrey, we're going to come to Jeffrey next and have him talk about it a little bit, but we're talking frames. And the delay on the ATEM will be much higher, on the bridge. Jeff, and then Bill and Courtney.
So if the band played to a click and you had some pre-recorded music that you could send to the dancers and shift that earlier in time so that the dancers are receiving music early to compensate for the delay of the video coming back.
Dancer delay.
There we go.
Advance, not delay.
Yeah, right.
And then,
dancer advance.
So they're dancing.
the only problem is when the boat gets there, and now that
what you have to do is
you're
create a
on top.
transition point. No, you got it. That's the answer. That is the answer. You have to figure out what the latency is. Then you can use anything because it's just a matter of what it is. I mean, obviously, if it gets too high, that's genius. Yeah. So the track that they're dancing to is off, and then when they get there, you create a transition point. People won't notice, like when they're outside the building and then they come in. You create some kind of thing where they're coming in where there's
A dance stop would do it.
Sorry.
A dance stop. As dancers dance,
Yep.
they can build in
yeah.
a routine, a cut point,
And then-
stop,
and then they-
and then they continue into the.
Yep. You could
That's quite straightforward.
you could totally sync that up.
Mm.
Oh, that's genius. Yeah, I think that's the answer. You still have to get your global click track working, but yeah, offsetting that by the delay would open up a whole host of possibilities affordably. Great. That's a great answer. Bill, and then Courtney.
I'm just curious for my own knowledge. A small dish microwave, would that not capture a signal? And is there enough latency in there to mess it up? Mickey's giving me the thumbs down, undoubtedly.
And we're past that. We already figured it out. We've got the click. We've
I know,
got
but I'm
the
just trying to
offset
learn
click track.
stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like we were worried about this latency. Now we're over that. We're past that. Courtney.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Studio transmitter links, or just find somebody with an old news unit that did, microwave, and go that way, because those are live and without much delay.
Yeah, now we can practically, we can just use the internet. Jason, and Stuart, and then Jeffrey, and we'll go on after that.
The equivalent that occurs to me is, like the Disney parades where, they are absolutely on a SMPTE clock, even
Right.
though it's live and choreographed. It strikes me as very much the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Stuart, and then Jeffrey.
I just realized we're thinking about the signal path the wrong way. It would be easier for whoever's running the stream to send the music to the boat, have it played out the speakers there and the dancers, and the send is then from the boat back to the dancers performing locally, and then from there out to the internet. That way,
Well, I don't think we're
there
going
is
out to the
no
internet.
sync
I think this is
issues.
in a room. So someone's in the room, and
Yeah, but
people are
that way
watching
there
the
is
screen.
no sync issues at all. Everybody's in sync because they're in sync.
But
with
there's a
what
live
gets to
band.
them.
Live band in the room, and the video has to go into the room. It's not out to the internet. I don't think. I think it's live band to the room is the issue.
I missed the live
Yeah.
band in the room part.
Yeah. Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think what I would do is I would just go through the practice and actually record one on both ends, record the band, then record the dancers, and then simply just do
Yeah,
the playback
but it's
on that. So there's no stream at all.
no,
You don't
there's
have to
not. We're
worry
not
about that.
streaming. We've got a live event with people in the rooms. So
Well,
this
yeah,
is a
but
different. So you
the
don't stream
people
it.
the people watching the band won't know that it's a video that's being played, and the people watching the dancers won't know it's a
But the
video
dancers are
of
coming
the
into
band
the
playing
room.
straight.
I think the dancers are coming into the room. I think that's the issue. Well, anyway, we've the offset will work. The offset will work.
Okay.
All right. Next question.
I had a feeling that one was going to be fun. Charles Klein is up next from New York
before
City.
before we get to this, we'll answer Charles's, and then we're going to go to Jeffrey to talk about his new little toy. Go ahead. We'll do the Charles Klein one.
Okay. Good day, everyone. How much does Zoom alter the color space and gamut it sends out compared to the original? Just testing things out.
It does do some of it. I feel like the blacks get a little picked up, but I think that it's generally that it just it compresses it, so it's doing a quantization of the colors and pushing them into smaller boxes. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, no, +1. Your answer was right.
Yep. So it's not so much changing it dramatically, because when I look at this, it has more to do with the cameras than it has to do with it's not making everything lighter or darker. I do find that it's a little lower contrast, and so a lot of times if we're shading people's zooms, which we do, we tend to increase the contrast a little bit on them, and they look a lot better. Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I've always wanted to know, in the settings in Zoom, you've got some checkboxes: touch up my appearance. What the heck does that do? And adjust for low light. Does that affect your outgoing signal, or is it only on your signal as shown on your monitor?
No, it's definitely your outgoing signal. The touch up is kind of a face cleanup. It's like a Pro Mist filter for your face.
I just turned mine on. Did my face look much more pretty now?
Oh, it's amazing. Yep. It's amazing. You're in the wrong business. You be model. It just pulls out some of the it's like
Are you seeing the lighting change when I click on adjust for low light and turn it off?
Yep. Okay. It gains it up a little bit. I think it's just an internal gain to your video, which is probably not a great thing to do.
There is a slider on adjust my appearance. Do I look like Brad Pitt now? I turned it on.
Hold on. Where did you go? So everything got rearranged here. Someone dropped out, and I can't find anybody.
I think you have something on your lens, Courtney, but later. Just a little tiny thing.
Anyway, let's go ahead, John Idelson, and then Jason.
Just put Courtney on full screen, and then you'll see some of the effects.
Yeah, I was trying to find him. Hold on, it got rearranged, and now I can't see him. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm adjusting the slider for touch up my appearance. That's the maximum. And I have the world's worst skin, so
Yeah, so it just takes out some of the.
It fixes my face.
It just smooths things out. It's just like a Pro Mist filter. Yeah.
Video Botox.
Yeah, exactly.
Just for low light is set to auto, so yeah, I think you can go to manual.
I just wanted to say, like, the easiest thing to do is if you just run scopes on your low light, it's like a force equalized histogram to, like, a perfect arc. Come what may, there's no intelligence. It just goes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the adjustments do work, but
they do work. Absolutely. We usually try to get them. They look odd on some people, so we try to get them to turn them off. Generally, we're very purists. We turn off that background and turn off this, and just get rid of all the junk. All right, so Jeffrey, you have a bridge. We hear. Are you there?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Sorry. Apparently YouTube's going through some weird internet storm or something. 'Cause I couldn't get into do any of the stuff. So I've been kind of moving around between different things. So yeah. So let me just do this really quick because I've got like 5,000 things that's going on right now. Anyway, so this is the streaming bridge right here. There we are. And got it yesterday, and a lot of people are wondering why I got it, and basically it's an influencer thing, so I've got to get a video out by the end of this week as the 6K goes back to Blackmagic as we go. So
the big question that we have is that Here, I got a couple questions for you. One is, what's the protocol that it's streaming between the bridge and the A10 Mini? Is it RTMP, SRT? How's it getting between the two?
Oh, yeah, it is our RTMP, yes.
Okay. And do you know what the nominal delay is over the internet?
I've only done tests outside back in, and I count around under 2 seconds of a delay. And that's going through my network back to my network, but I haven't. I was hoping that Stuart would have been around to do a test last night, but he wasn't. So
and then
I'm not shaming you, Stuart, but go ahead.
The other question that I have is, are you able to control the A10 Mini? Do you get the interface so that you can actually run the A10 Mini from the bridge?
No, you can. The only thing that you get to do with the A10 Mini is get the audio and video. So what I was told was back a few weeks ago when they had the not the Oscars but the Emmys, they had sent out all these units, and part of the unit was with a streaming the idea with the streaming bridge. So they would have the Blackmagic 4K system that would ship to the person's house, whatever, and then they would just come in. They'd simply set it up, or somebody would set it up. All they had to do was press one button, and then it would go back through the IP protocol on here. The only issue that you have to do is you have to understand how to open up port 1935 or change the port if you're already using 1935, which is what I had to do. I had to change it to 1937 on my firewalls to get the video to go out, and that's
a typical RTMP port.
Yeah, but there was nothing else I could do. I had to make the change on it. So yeah, other than that, the setup is fairly simple. There's 3 ways to use it. The first way is you can take the Ethernet cable and go directly into here, and then this is used to get bring the video to your source, and right now this is going to a capture card rather than back to the A10 Mini. So my A10 Mini's grabbing a source and then bringing it over here, and the source that I've got right now is basically this one right here, which is the YouTube video that we're doing right now to keep copyright safe. But then the second way and this the way that I have set up right now is to hook it up into your network, come back out here, and then there's a third way, and that is to hook it up to the network, but set it up to go RTMP back here. So this becomes an RTMP style server.
Right.
And then go ahead.
No, that's it. Yes,
I've got one more question.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if how picky is it? I'm thinking of corporate networks and infrastructure. It has to have that port opened.
It has to have a port open. You can change the port. Like I said, my 1935 was being used, so I switched it to 1937. You can definitely do a range. And yeah, I've been to some of those Fortune 100 companies where they tie everything down, and it takes like weeks or months to even get one port open. So I totally get that. And you might have to use an external network source if you're in that type of situation.
I'd assume it's UDP, right?
Yes, UDP.
Stuart, and then Courtney.
Yeah, I missed Jeffrey's message and saw it only a few minutes ago, but I'm quite happy to reset a streaming box or a vMix machine and send directly to Jeffrey's machine. I'll just need to set up some ports. If Jeff wants to do that using Discord to share details, we can probably try it out towards the end of the show.
If you don't have an A10 Mini Pro or ISO, we won't be able to do this as of right now. I haven't found an alternate way to do this to bring it into the streaming bridge, and I've tried taking the XML file.
With other devices?
Not at this point.
It's locked out.
Yeah, they pair, I believe. I don't think it's designed to take anything from anything. Yeah.
I don't see any besides a network key. I don't see any handshake protocol in the XML file or anything like that. So if that's the case, then they did it pretty well.
Yeah. Courtney, and then Victor.
Can it be used on your local area network just as an additional HD out of the ATEM Mini to convert to SDI or so on? And can you control, does it only get program out, or can you control what goes out to the stream bridge so that you could send other, use it like an aux out on the other, on the other HD?
The only thing that this is meant for is if I'm in one location, they're in another location, and I have the ATEM Mini Pro, and they need to get a 1080p signal to them. So basically what happens is it comes out of your ATEM Mini, and then it goes to the streaming bridge, which would then connect to a TV or to a capture system or something like that. It doesn't do any back and forth control. It's just if you had a monitor on the other end of the room and you didn't want to run an HDMI cable, you use this like a RTMP type situation where you plug it in and let it run that way.
But through the switching software, can you control which signal it's sending, whether it's program, preview, any of the individual inputs, or multi
on the
software?
On the person that has the ATEM Mini, if they press the button, yes. If
it's still programmed,
let's say you're
it's programmed.
If you send me your ATEM Mini Pro, all I'm getting is whatever button you're pressing. I can't press any of those buttons.
It's a program.
I realize that, but can you choose?
It's just program.
Just program. Okay. I thought you might pull a drop down up to set the output to the stream bridge to something else.
I think it's simple.
Using it with the ISO, I have been, of course, using my program out, so I can't use my multi-view in essence on my ISO. I believe this is going to resolve that problem for me, and if so, how would I hook it up so that I can now have my multi-view but be streaming out my program?
You would what it would work for you is it would stream out to me, which would have the bridge. And then I would be able to send it out to the internet. So the only thing that I would do is it would save you going out, turning on the YouTube or something like that.
I don't know if it would really help, Victor, for what you're trying to do. And I have to admit, I mean, the thing for me is the idea that it could burrow back and control the ATEM Mini was something I was really interested in. Not being able to do that, I'm not that excited about RTMP as a protocol for a show, like as a contributing, as a contribution platform. I mean, it's fine to send it as mezzanine to YouTube or Facebook or whatever because we have to, but like as a contribution to my show, I don't know if I would depend on RTMP to do that. I mean, feel like SRT would have been a better solution for that.
Yeah,
Victor and then Jason.
Let me just clarify, Alex, because if this is the case, I may have to cancel my order. What I was trying to do is, right now I'm using the mini recorder as the way to stream out because I can't plug in my drive and stream at the same time with the ISO. That's the big catch. So I thought this was going to be able to let me, do that. Both, send something to Facebook or YouTube while still freeing up my USB to use with my drive to record all my ISOs. So.
Yeah, that's not going to do that.
Really?
Well, I don't. You could just stream from the switch. Oh, because you got all the other stuff going on there.
When I
for what you're doing, it might actually, because you're streaming from your computer, not from the ATEM, right?
No, I'm streaming from the ATEM, but my output of the ATEM is going into the recorder right now, and then that goes out to Facebook and so on. But that means I can't.
When you say echoes out, what do you mean?
Well, I'm saying that the mini recorder is what's sending stuff to Facebook and stuff. But the
mini recorder isn't. You have a piece of software that's sending it to Facebook. The mini recorder is taking that input and putting it into your computer, right?
Right.
But what's streaming to Facebook? What
my
app?
Program out, because if I go to my multi-view right now, you will see my multi-view. See, so I always have to keep my ATEM.
No, I understand, but what are you using the mini recorder for? So it gets video in, but what is it? What is the mini? What's accessing the mini recorder?
Coming out of the ATEM
into the mini recorder.
Into the mini recorder, and then
mini recorder goes in. The mini recorder goes into the computer, right?
Right.
And then what software? Oh, YouTube, Facebook seeing the mini recorder directly.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay,
Because
sorry.
I hit, you know,
Yeah,
I hit
I know what you're talking about. Okay, so you want to see your multi-view. You want to use the Ethernet cable that will go to the streaming bridge, and then that will go to a capture card that will go out to YouTube. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
That'll
It
work.
will do that. Yes.
Yep, that'll work.
Thank you.
Yep. Jason?
Honestly, I wouldn't hold out. I wouldn't doubt first, at least until at least another one or two of us have it, because the SDK may open up what you're after, Alex.
Maybe, but I'm not nearly as much the rush that I was before. Oh, Jeffrey, one more thing, and we'll move on. We've taken
Well,
this one as far as it needs to go.
I'm just going to show you. This is how you set it up. You basically have to go into the setup. You go to the streaming bridge. It gives you all the IP addresses. What you have to do is you have to go to the external Mini Pro. This is where you set up the IP address, if it's going to be a local or if it's going to be a remote. You save those settings. That creates an XML file. That XML file I would then send to whoever has the ATEM Mini Pro. They would then insert it into their ATEM. They'd hit the live stream and then send it out. And that was the other part I wanted to show you. It is almost the quarter to Sky's thing. I want to bring that up.
Yep. Go ahead, Stuart.
I'm just wondering, Jeffrey, could you show that screen again for a second? I had this down small and I didn't actually catch all the details. I'm just wondering if you're able to send the XML and whether I can copy that into,
Let's
one
do
of
that
my
offline.
boxes or whatever and
If you
pass
guys
it.
get it
I'll
working,
send
we'll talk
you
about
the
it next.
XML.
We'll talk about it on
I'll
the
send
next
you
show.
the
We won't try to do
Discord
it
for
during
that.
the show. Yep. We'll do it, but we'll push it off to next tomorrow's show as far as whether it worked or not. Anyway, let's go to the next question.
Gabriel Ung is back from Malaysia and says, is Dante Via similar to Loopback, with the only difference is that it can send audio over networks? Do I need a Dante virtual sound card along with Dante Via?
Depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, Dante Via is kind of like Loopback. You can select like specific apps to get audio from. So Loopback-ish. Dante Via and Dante Virtual Sound Card don't work on the same machine at the same time. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
And our experience of Dante Via has not been good. I think that would be safe to say. It's horrible. It's like we love Dante. Like my entire infrastructure. We're actually taking the USB pre's out of the system that we had because we have never gone to them, and I don't know how many events. So, but Dante Via I don't think has been a successful protocol. Mike.
Yeah. So is Dante Via like something that is like more Windows friendly than Mac friendly? Like, what's the difference between the two?
I don't think it's friendly at all. I don't think it's
hates everything equally.
I think it just is not a protocol that worked very well. We just had a lot of trouble with it. And so I don't. Go ahead, Jeff.
Dante Via doesn't have the sample rate restrictions that Dante Virtual Sound Card does. So it does its own asynchronous sample rate conversion onto the Dante network. So your audio software doesn't need to be clocked to what you're running, whereas Dante Virtual Sound Card becomes the audio interface.
And I think that sliding, that ability to do that is what creates.
Yeah, it sounds like a benefit, but it causes so many problems.
Yeah. So I would stay away from that. Anyway, next question.
Dan Huber of Erie, Pennsylvania says, on our Zoom account, we're regularly going over our cloud storage space. They haven't done anything yet. Just wondering if others had something happen to their Zoom account.
I'm in the process of pulling them all down, but I've gone way over without anybody doing anything about it. I mean, I've never seen them do anything like delete it. I think that, I don't know. I can't quite figure out how much it would cost to keep as much as I've kept up there, but I did pull a bunch of it down, worried that someday they're going to delete it, but I haven't seen anything happen yet. Jason, and I've got like 80 gigs up there. Jason?
Yeah. Same deal. I have been impressed at how little or if at all it's been policed. But yeah, I've just basically started at night, just throwing them on Drive where I have unlimited storage.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Third, same here.
Yep. So next question.
Francisco Manriquez of Sonoma says, I'm running a virtual high school assembly through Zoom in a few days, 1 speaker and 200 participants. Any advice on making sure this runs smooth from his end?
It's really the big thing that for the speaker is making sure that they have good audio, good video, that they have a good internet connection. All the things we talk about is, the other thing that you want to do is figure out, how you're going to communicate if things aren't working. So, you want to think about those back end things of how are you communicating with them. For us, because we have a point-to-point connection, we just talk to them. But otherwise, is it going to be text, phone, whatever? But you have to be able to give them tips. It could be a text thing that they just have opened on their screen, but you got to figure out what that communicate. Comms is everything, for these shows. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was just going to say, the other thing that you need to worry about is make sure you disable everybody but the speaker from doing obnoxious things during the Zoom session. I mean, this is students, this is kids. So, there are controls like turn off the whiteboarding, turn off screen sharing, turn off.
Yeah, the way ours is set up, for instance, is host only. So host or co-host only is how you set it. We kind of limit it to that because of previous experience.
You didn't mention that. That's why what cued me was he's got to think about his participants, because I've dealt with 200 Cub Scouts, and it's amazing what they will start to do.
Yeah. And then the big thing is with all events, remember that everything is about. The middle of the event is usually pretty predictable. It's getting in and out of segments is the hard part. So rehearse those, rehearse with them. How are they going to start the show? How are they going to, how are we going to get to them? How are we going to, one thing to think about is countdown clocks. So the reason the countdown clock is nice at the beginning of a show is two things. One is it tells people that the show is about to start. The other one is it cues the speaker. So if you don't have a way to cue the speaker, you have a countdown clock and you practice it. Like when we get to 0, we're cutting to you, so you spotlight, you basically do you're spotlighting the countdown clock, and then you spotlight to them, and they know that cue. You don't have to cue them over anything or tell them or tell them at a certain time. A countdown clock helps sync the entire team, both the audience and your production team, to what's going to actually happen next. And so if you rehearse against that, it works pretty well. So I'd say countdown clock, good audio, video, rehearsal. Those are the big things that are going to. And then try to take stuff away. If there's going to be Q&A, do not make him do it. Like have somebody else be the social desk that's going to ask, like we do here, is have someone else answer the questions. You cannot be present and have these conversations and do that at the same time. It's just very, very difficult. Guy and then Jason. Guy, did you have your hand up? Did I catch you?
Yeah, I was just asking Jeffrey where we were at with the Madeline live for NBC.
I am.
It's up next.
I've been tracking it. Well, theoretically, it's up next, but I've been tracking it. I have it opened here, and so I just haven't.
Cool. I just didn't want to miss it.
Yep. See, I've been watching the preview window. Right now, it's safety and security of the ballots at the moment. But I've got the window open, so I'm ready to jump to it as soon as it.
I'm at commercial break, so I might be ahead of you on that. Just so you know.
Yeah. So Jeffrey, if you see it and I don't see it, it means that we're in an offset, and so we'll jump to you. Otherwise, I'll screen share it. It's coming up right here. Coming up, politics in the pandemic. Is that what you're seeing? 8:05 p.m. Oh, that's
no. That was
all right.
That was the segment I just saw. Was politics in the pandemic?
An ad for drugs.
So Jeffrey may be
ahead.
So right now I'm seeing muffins. Did you see muffins earlier? It's McDonald's McCafe muffins. Anyway,
that was about a minute ago.
I think that's interesting. He's doing it off a couple of iPhones. That surprises me.
It's what they wanted, right?
Yeah.
It's just what they know how to do, and this also tells you why their videos have been so bad. It's just that they're looking for the scraps off of Longshank's table. Anyway,
that means
Jason.
more than likely, right? It's all Wi-Fi. Are they having to deal?
I'm sure it's Wi-Fi. Yeah. Scraps of Longshank's table is what I call it. If you've watched Braveheart, that's my every time. Yeah. So anyway, next question.
Okay, Doug Ferguson here from Fort Wayne. It's a scope creep question. When a new nonprofit client keeps adding to a project, what's the best way to tell them? And there's an exclamation point. So no.
Usually, it's just that we need to. There's two things. One is that if it's, Doug, are you getting paid for it, or is it something you're volunteering?
No, well, we're getting paid for it, but already they got me down. Like we gave them a price, and then she's like, we don't have that. Can you do it for this? And I said, you know, our invoice will show the real number, and then we will write a check for the donated part. And then she keeps adding, you know, captioners, you know.
No.
Well, usually I respond.
ASL people, like,
Usually I just respond when someone adds that. I just respond with, well, this is how much that, you know, that costs. You know, like this is the line item for that. I mean, you know, like I would come back and just let them, like, I say yes to everything, but just it's just money. You know, like I say yes to everything, but this is the incremental cost based on that. So if you want captioners, like a captioner is $120 an hour, you're going to need a minimum to, you know, like a minimum of an hour or 2 hours, and then you have to have the tools to be able to do the captioning. So you have to rent an EEG. That's going to cost a couple grand. So there's a bunch of things that would add, you know, or if you're going to do YouTube, you're going to do HTTP, and it might be a little less expensive. But I would let them go and like, hey, we're happy to do that, but this is what that costs. You know, like to do that. But it's just laying it out for the client. You don't have to say no. Like I don't say no to clients. I say this is how much it costs, and then they make a decision about how much what they want. You know, like it's, you know, that's. I'll keep on adding things, you know, if it's, and if I can find a place in the budget that makes it sense, I will say yes to whatever I can in the budget. If I can move something in the budget around, like we'll save a little over here and then spend a little over here, I do that as well. But when we've already added a bunch of things, you want to be careful of that process. Go ahead, Jason, and then Kev, and then Chris.
Yeah. Black and white, good contract policies. Basically take what Alex said and codify it and get a sign off on that instantaneously. Like before there's any, we have a deal, don't ever let it happen, you know, fly by night, and then just refer back to the document.
Yep. Kev?
Yeah, that's more or less what I was going to add. Just make sure your requirements are explicit in what you're able to deliver. And if they're trying to add stuff, because I know what you mean, I've had to try to play this one, simply say, sorry, you can't have that. And, oh, but we're a charity. Yeah, and I'm a business. You can't do it. It's as simple as that. Just be honest. They respect you for it.
Yeah, I don't think you need to, again, say, you know, be too rough about it. It's just a matter of letting them know that's an incremental cost. You know, that's there. Go ahead, Chris.
Say it quite that way.
Yeah, exactly, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say that it always astonishes me how many things people try and get for free. I mean, imagine going to the grocery store and when they finish ringing up the thing, they say that'll be $125.70, and you go, I'll tell you what, I got $100. Why don't we call it even? You should do that once in a while. You should do that once in a while and see the astonishment on the people's face and how dumbfounded they are. And that's really how ridiculous some of the things we get asked for when we're asked to give stuff for free. I agree. Yes, we can do that. This is what it costs.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember is that a lot of times they just don't know. They don't know what's hard and what's not. Sometimes the client asks for something that's easy, and then you just do it, right? But there's other things that they do that are hard, and you have to tell them that A, this will cost more, B, it could destabilize the event. You'll hear me say that a lot if you're on a show with me. Like if we make that improvement, you know, we have to undo a bunch of things that do it. So Brian, you're seeing it. Are you seeing it, Jeffrey? Brian's seeing it.
I'm getting some apple dumpling thing. I think that's what the commercial you saw earlier.
Okay, I'm in Country Crock right now, so we'll see if I see it. So
well, I mean, the apple dumplings is what they're making.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not live, and it's not Madeline. It's some person that does this on a regular basis.
Oh, okay.
So is this a shill for the apple dumpling industry?
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Mike, and then Courtney.
Yeah. So having done production for like 25 years, the two things that always never ceased to amaze me was when clients when they play the game of, hey, if you give me a break this time, you know, we'll make it up to you next time, right, for the next project. And then the other one is when they try to tell you, well, this should only take a couple hours. And it just like kills me when they do that. I was like, how do you know?
I love it when people, I love it when people tell me how easy what I need to do for them is.
Right. Yeah. And they don't do it. Like, how is it they know that it should only take a couple hours?
There's some projects that I'll go like, so there's one recent project that I have coming up in the next couple of weeks where the scope of the project, they didn't ask for it to be increased, but I was like, for the level of people coming, we should not do it the way you were planning to do it. Like you're doing a little webinar and this is a really big, you know, you have really important people showing up. So I offered, did a scope creep where I said we should move this into our big system, not into a computer doing it. And I said it'll cost more, or because of the kind of event it is, we want branding. So I just said I want to put our brand on it because I know that the people watching, there's going to be a lot of people watching. They may be interested in my business, because it's going to look a lot better than if I switch the systems. It's suddenly going to look a lot better than anything they've seen on Zoom, and they're going to be like, who did that? And so I'll sometimes switch things to, I want branding, behind the scenes, case study, files, everything else. So that's another place that you can go if you want to continue the contract. But because it's very hard for what I do, it's very hard for me to show anything. I don't get to, I'm NDA'd into the ground. And so sometimes I'll say, this is a project that's worth it. This is a project that I want to have there. I'll give you some savings if I can, have unfettered rights to, and usually it's something I can afford. I figured out how to fit it into, we're not taking a hit on it. It just means I won't make any money. It won't, it'll be an even project, but it's something that it's worth spending. I don't do it very often, but if you see something coming, a lot of times we'll think about it, in that process. So that's another way to think about how to do it. Especially with a nonprofit, remember that the board of directors in that nonprofit are X, Y, and Z. They're connected to a lot of people. If you still want to do it, you may look at getting PR today, not down the road, but PR today, out of that, because it can lead to a lot of other business that you can get. But you have to make that choice for yourself. You're spending money into it essentially. You're underwriting their show, but that can be a way that you can get something out of it. To everyone else's point, I don't really hear when people say that there could be better work in the future. I can't even hear that. I can't, it's as if they didn't talk, to me, I don't have any hearing for it at all. I just wait, it's like wah, 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 and then they move on. So, but in that moment, you can decide what might benefit you out of that process. Courtney, and then Jason.
I hope the jackhammers have started and you can still hear me, but they're tearing up my sidewalk. There's a problem with branding, and a teleprompting company for years, the Academy Awards or the big award shows would say, well, you should do the show for free and we'll give you a credit at the end. And you just,
I don't want the credit at the end.
Yeah. And also it's like, well, that's a live show. All it takes is one drunk person getting up there and complaining that they can't see the teleprompter or something. And then, there goes your entire career. So I don't ever do anything for branding. And the second thing is they always ask me, oh, we're a nonprofit, can you do it for free? And I said, well, as somebody else mentioned earlier, I'm a small business, and in order for a tax deduction to benefit me, I have to make a large profit that I can deduct that from at the end of the year. Right. And it's not going to help me much.
Yeah.
The other question I have for Doug is his football games. I know he's got a great trailer full of fancy equipment there. Are those financed through the school? Do you charge them? Is it a labor of love? Is it how is that?
The brand new school that we just picked up is a local Catholic school, so we're directly with the school, and they found a sponsor that has some big dollars. So
is the Catholic Church.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason, and then Stephen.
I would add also that this is a business skill like any other. And believe it or not, you actually get very used to this kind of discussion, and it doesn't have to be hostile. And you're not working for them yet if you are still negotiating a price. You are even. You are equals. You are co-equal and on equal ground. Don't ever be afraid to say no. But, I will add that over the years, I've basically never had this turn out badly for me. Knock on wood, but if you're doing it right, it's not hard.
And I've definitely had projects that just got away from me. I didn't make the agreements up front, and then I just finished the project well. I just do the project well, and I take it as a lesson. I generally don't get into it too heavily in the, next time I'm not going to do that. It's once I'm in the project. If I didn't make those agreements pretty clear, I just do what I need to do to get it done. And then I go, okay, well, the next one I'm going to rearrange things this way, and this way to make sure it works. And sometimes those are added things from the client. Sometimes it's added to me. Sometimes it's just not managed well by me. So there's a bunch of things that you learn on each one of these as well. Go ahead, Stephen, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, change requests are your friend. And even if it's a minor one, document it, hand it back, and say, where it's coming from.
But it just has to be specific. You have to be
Yes,
specific at the beginning. If you're not specific at the beginning, then
specific.
but you have to be specific at the beginning. You know, that the how you get into the project kind of defines what you can do during the project. Anyway, next question.
Francisco Manriquez of Sonoma said, is there a less expensive version of the Ear Hero headset, particularly anything under $50?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that people have been using for these. So yeah, I don't know.
Do you want to explain what they actually are, Alex?
The Ear Heroes. Ear Heroes are in-ear. I think my Ear Heroes are somewhere else right now, but they're basically very, very low profile, in-ear monitors. So you could use how much are those, John?
Depending on whether you get single ear or dual ear, it's either I think 150 US or 300
right.
US.
So he's looking for something under 50. I mean, there's lots of little ear. Someone had suggested one earlier that I did.
Wasn't it?
Go ahead. Someone else.
Me 16, I think it was. I'll have a look. Hang on, I'll find it for you.
Yeah. So there's
£20.
Yeah. So there's a couple that are relatively inexpensive. Did Victor leave? Victor had some that he uses that I think aren't very expensive, but I think we lost him.
Yeah, I had a pair that was like $20. I'm pulling it right now from Amazon, but it should be in show notes from shows gone by.
Yeah, so I think we lost. Victor had a pair that isn't very expensive that he uses, but
Me 6 Pro, I think he had.
Right.
I think that's what it was called.
Next question. We don't have a strong answer for that one today.
Alex, I've just put the Ear Hero link in the chat,
right, but what
and Waiju has put in the one for the EP M6 Pros.
Okay, perfect. There you go. Next question.
Rick Coombs of Columbia, Tennessee says, using Restream.io, we are streaming to Facebook and YouTube to make sure that everything is going okay. We start the stream 30 minutes early. Is there a way to have it stream without Facebook and YouTube recording the pre-show?
Go ahead, Jason.
Of course. You stream up to Restream, and then you toggle the thing on in the website when you're actually ready to let it loose.
The other thing is that with both of these, I mean, if you're going to stream to it and you're going to record the show, if you have the DVR function on for both of these, it will. If you are sending that 30 minutes ahead of time for Facebook and YouTube, it will be part of the record. You can't have it only start record at a time differently than when you streamed it. To Jason's point, you can definitely decide when you're streaming to it, but if you start that pre-show at 30 minutes before, which I recommend at least 15, you are going to keep that in the header. The thing to know is that with both of those platforms, you can go back and trim it. So you can trim the head off of it. Don't trim the tail. It causes instability issues in YouTube to trim the tail, and you'll end up with a bad start point. And it doesn't matter. People get to the end of it, they'll just have a nice slate that sits there for a couple seconds and then close it off. But
hey,
leave
Alex,
the tail.
I thought I'd note we've lost Jeffrey. So if you're keeping an eye on the stream.
Okay, I'm still watching. I think that we're an hour offset, so I think that we might see it at 8:48. Right. So I'm just I have it open though if I see it pop up. Now that we're off the time that we expected, I think that I'm just gonna wait until the next one, and we may be 2 hours off. I don't know. So anyway, so to get back to this though, you can trim the heads later, and it'll take 3 or 4 hours for it to process, but that's what you want to do. And don't not stream to it, because it's really stressful to stream for everybody involved to start streaming right before an event. You want to figure out what you're going to kind of do as that pre-show. So think about 15 or 20 minutes of programming, videos, slides, things, countdown clocks, all kinds of things, but program that. Your show should start 15 minutes before. That's the proper way, in my opinion, to do it. We have clients that want to start right in front of it. There are reasons to do that in Facebook and Twitter, because you will lose a huge number of people unless you build a compelling start. So if you build something that's worth watching for 15 minutes before the show, you'll actually have more viewers at the top of the show for Facebook or Twitter. If you put a countdown clock up even 2 minutes before a Facebook or Twitter show, you'll lose 75% of your audience. So you have to either do a really hard hit into it, but it's a very stressful way to do it. And if something's not working, you're toast, and so that's the real problem. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I'd say, just to add on to what you said, a little bit of pre-production and a pretty graphic like Apple does will go a long way.
I mean, the most effective thing is having a pre-show. A pre-show for the show is the way to do it. Like it is, you're engaging people, you're taking people's questions, you're having a discussion. There's a real show there. You're telling people what it is. Have a countdown clock up. Have maybe some video pre-roll. All of those things are really valuable. And so I would highly recommend, some kind of pre-show. I mean, that is the way to do it if you can pull it off. Anyway, next question.
Sound Mixer SF, Jesse in the San Francisco Bay Area asks, has anybody used the Bird Dog Dante NDI bridge to bring Dante audio into an NDI signal? Is it reliable?
Go ahead, Jason.
I'm sorry, but I don't believe that NDI and reliable should be in the same sentence. I know I'm going to get burned for this, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a. Anyway, so yeah. I mean, I think that there are some folks who build their network for it. It's a stable network. They're not changing it all the time, that have been successful with NDI. So I don't think that, and in the cloud, it works. I think works pretty well going between machines. I think you have to really, you can't just throw it on the network and just expect it to work. I mean, it'll kind of work, but it'll fall apart. You really have to build a network for it, and really set it up. And that's the part that people oftentimes cut corners on, and then they pay for it. So sure, I think it'll be stable if you really set up your network for it. And it's an isolated network that just does what it needs to do. It's transporting your video and so on and so forth. I think you could be fine, but you really have to set that up and then not change it very often or at all, and go from there. Next question.
Well, the next one is actually a softball for Jeffrey, and I was just looking to see if Jeffrey has arrived back, but he hasn't. So I think I'm going to slip down to the Tim Corbin question from Baltimore. Guy or others, in Zoom, has anyone found a way to annotate content shared from the second camera? If not, any suggestions on how a panelist could annotate someone else's shared screen, which is content from a second camera?
Go ahead. Good guy.
I believe we don't have the annotations turned on for this webinar, so I think it's just a back end thing where you got to flip that little switch for annotations, and then you can draw on the screen. I know I've done it with an iPad because
can you draw on somebody else's camera?
Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely can.
Interesting.
I'm not positive on that, but if you've seen it, then yeah, that answer.
Yeah, I did it in court. I had to mark up because they had to put the pictures in front of me that I took, and I was circling stuff. So yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
In a meeting though, or in a webinar?
In a court meeting, yeah. I don't think it was a webinar.
Meeting. Yep. I think Corbin's doing webinars. He might need to let us know in the chat to see which one it is.
Go ahead, Greg. You're muted.
I think you can do it in a meeting. I don't think you can do it in a webinar.
Right. Next question.
Mike Burns of Spokane is here with, for Alex, a friend did a live event last week and they streamed to YouTube and the sync was way off. I know there can be lots of variables that can make this happen. What's the top 3 reasons why sync delay would occur? In order, please.
Well, the number one reason is they didn't, it depends on what way off is. Are you talking about like seconds, or are you talking about like a half a second, a quarter second?
Probably 2 or 3 seconds. Yeah.
2 or 3 seconds. Well, the number one thing is to refresh your browser, because oftentimes if you're watching it, it's a browser gets disconnected, from it. So if you've refreshed your browser and it's off, then a lot of times it can be do you know what kind of software they were using to stream it, software or hardware?
Let's see, the very popular one. I'm sorry.
Wirecast? OBS?
OBS, yeah. So they were doing OBS, and I know they were running, they weren't running Wi-Fi, they were running Ethernet off the iMac, but
the second thing is usually on a software encoding, it's the processor getting over driven. Basically when the processor, anytime a processor streaming goes over about 70%, you're going to start seeing anomalies. You're going to start seeing sync issues, frame drops, slow frame rate, all those things. So once the processor, the processor usage goes over 70%, you're in trouble. It's not going to work the way you expect it to.
And if they're recording, would that also I would imagine
Oh,
text
yeah.
the processor as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Like you're just asking a computer to do way more than it's built for. You know, you software can definitely work, but you have to. The advantage of hardware is that it doesn't do as many things as software, but it just does the thing it does, right? And it doesn't lose track of things. With software, you can easily ask your computer to do more than it can do, and it'll just keep on trying to do the best it can. But at some point, it starts to conserve resources, you know, between things. It's just too little jam spread over too much bread, you know. And so it just, you know, and so so just doing the best it can, you know. And so anyway, so I think that most likely, I'm going to guess that the problem, if it's seconds, the problem is really going to be I'm going to zero in on the CPU usage. You know, that this, you know, if you're recording on the computer and you're doing a bunch, you know, you're editing and you're streaming on an iMac, the chances of it being able to survive that at 1080p is very low. Courtney?
Yeah, I don't know if you're still under NDA on this, Alex, but when I joined the Dolby Summit the other day, when it first started, and my pathway was I was receiving it, I logged into the Dolby portal on my laptop through Chrome. Then I cast it to my Chromecast on the big screen TV, so it'd have good audio and big video, and then it optimized for the Chromecast. So now the Chromecast is getting the feed directly. But for about the first guy, that was a pre-recorded, I think, introduction, it was several seconds out of sync. And I didn't know if it was me or if it was the feed. So I disconnected, relogged in, did the same trip all over again, zeroed out the buffers, and it was still out of sync. Was it you or was it me? I don't know.
We didn't get a lot of comments on it, so I'm going to guess it's you.
Several other people in the
Okay.
chat were having the same problem. Several seconds out of sync. I mean,
Were
you
they-
couldn't even tell. You know,
we were
is it
watching a lot of
I don't know.
we were watching a lot of versions of that, and it wasn't out of sync. So I mean, we were watching it on like 8 different platforms, you know. So it's
And that's the
so-
problem when you're handing off streams, you know, between browsers and Chromecast.
One thing that we do in general for a lot of these, one thing we do in general for a lot of these is try to get our hands on as many of the platforms as possible, and then we have them all laid out. You'll see someone usually in our office with a whole bunch of Android and laptops and Windows and all kinds of other things. We have them all open, and we're trying to, you know, we're watching all of them for those kinds of things. And we didn't, on our end, we didn't see that, Kev.
Yeah, it's just a thought on the Chrome that made me think, we're using Google Chrome. Right.
Yes.
I was going to suggest try using Microsoft's Edge, because they decluttered all their googly bits and it runs a lot more efficiently for video. I've certainly noticed that just running straight comparisons between the two browsers.
But once you hand it off to Chromecast, it switches the stream. It stops the stream in Chrome's window, and the Chromecast then. Now you've just got remote control over starting and stopping the stream, but the stream's going directly RTMP into the Chromecast.
Yeah.
Just try different browsers sometimes.
Yeah, I don't have a solution for that. Stuart, and then Stephen, and then Fenwick. Really quickly, we're going to move on because we've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, I just wonder if everybody's local streaming issues they saw were related to which local server from Akamai they were getting it, because we noticed while we were watching and here on office hours that there were several different there were different seconds of delay between what I was seeing, what Guy was seeing, what we were displaying in the background of our images.
That's super common, like latency across Akamai. But it won't. The thing is the packets, it's HLS, and the packets are being delivered to you together, the audio and video. So it's not going to drop the audio and video out of sync. You will definitely see as much as 10 or 15 seconds of difference anywhere in the world, even in the same room, because it just depends on when it requested it and how that request went through. Syncing people up is not really a thing that we think about that much as far as them watching it. As long if it's within 10 seconds or 15 seconds, we're like, man, you know,
the only negative thing I saw was a little bit of tearing, and that could simply be just sheer bandwidth being used.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. Chris Fenwick, and then Stephen.
I was going to say, you said you tested on a bunch of different devices by chance. Did you test on any of the Chrome type stuff that Courtney was having trouble
You know,
with?
I don't think we did a Chromecast, which we'll add to our list. The Chromecast is something that was untested for us. It wasn't a target.
You know, it's funny. You could test for as many things, and you can always say, well, it's probably a problem on your end until it's the one that your client's looking at, and now it's really important.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, I captured part of it, and Final Cut said you were under 2 frames off.
Under,
So,
yeah.
under
So.
2 frames. So it's like Alex should be happy.
Yeah. Next question.
Mike Henderson in Colorado asks, anyone on the panel have experience with the ATEM streaming bridge? This was a softball for Jeffrey Powers, who's back in the panel now. I held that one for you, Jeffrey. Whoops, you're double muted.
Let's try that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So in my case, it was a situation of too much jam, not enough, whatever your analogy about bread and jam was.
Too much bread, not enough jam.
Yeah, as I was doing the ATEM Mini, I was watching the NBC thing, and I just ran out of memory on the computer. That's why you modularize. That's why you modularize. So,
yeah, exactly.
So the question was, yeah, I have experience with the ATEM Mini bridge, streaming bridge.
There's your answer.
Very good. A one-word answer. I love it.
That's all he has. So.
We're gonna keep testing it. He just got it yesterday, so we'll come back, bring that question back up. But we have the early opinions. At least my opinion is mostly that RTMP is not something I would send over the internet very much. Using it the way Victor may use it, which is sending it to using it as a way to stream to getting another output to go out to Facebook, I think makes sense. Internally in his network. Not super excited about the idea of streaming RTMP to another location as a real contribution. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
And I will say this really quick. It is just like NDI. It is very open. So if somebody has your information, they can attach to your streaming bridge. If you don't get your streaming bridge on, they could attach to it right away.
I mean, in a budget, I could definitely see like 2 seconds is too long to have any real conversation. In a budget, I could definitely see this as a way to do contribution from a bunch of different places into one. So you'd have, a bunch of little videos, but you're jumping to them individually. Like, okay, now we're going to DC, now we're going to New York, now we're going to whatever. And those all coming into a mini and you switching between them. I think that in a limited budget could be effective. But I don't think that, I wouldn't use it for high profile things in my opinion. Next question.
Mike Burns from the panel here and in Spokane says, if you wanted to learn how to produce and live stream remote events and interviews, and you knew nothing about how to do this, is there any formal training online or in person? What he wants is live stream events for dummies.
Well, the best thing to do is to do it and then ask questions here is probably the best way to do it. We're working on some different we started going into some stuff earlier in the summer, and then we're going to come back to it where we do some like more focused things where we talk about these. We'll have second hours next week. We've been doing some stuff around production on Fridays. And in those are going to be, we talked a little about getting work and dealing with folks. That was kind of the preamble to that, but we're going to talk about captions. We're going to talk about starting shows and live streams and process, so those Fridays are going to be pretty good for that. And then I am, trying to work out classes, that we can take. Bringing some experts in or doing it where we can do like a 3-hour class on a Saturday, or a 4-hour class or a series of classes. And so we're trying to kind of trying to figure out the mechanism of that. But ones that we're interested in live streaming, Resolve, those types of things where we start to get everybody together and figure out a way that we can do it cost effectively. But we would need these will be things that we probably end up charging for everyone to kind of chip in to do it so that we can bring in experts or we can put a team together to run the class itself. So of course we'll try to do it as cost effectively as we can, but we want to try to do something that's more formalized in that sense, but using what we've gotten good at here, but adding more infrastructure to it. Go ahead, Jason.
It's also worth mentioning that the very best crash course, at least for me and my learning style, is do it, make mistakes about it, come back to, a panel like this one and just learn.
And this is actually where I utilize nonprofits a lot. Like I go to, working with a church, working with a nonprofit, working with whatever, and volunteering time to do it. to do little bits and pieces and deal with the pain that it takes to do it. But there's not, the fastest way to learn is to fail. And you don't want people to pay you to fail. So what you want to do is get out there and volunteer time. Try to do your own live streams out of your house. I mean, you look at Hosmuk. Hosmuk is like slowly doing these streams with his wife. They get better every single time. So and definitely come up here. You can come up here from your set. I mean, people come in, especially the 6 to 6:30 in the morning, come up with a setup and show us what you're doing, and we'll give you our 2 cents. And so this is a pretty strong place to ask questions and to do it informally. And then we're going to work on some more formal solutions. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm not good at learning stuff, but I recently had a bit of a crash course.
The best way to learn, the best drug for learning anything is adrenaline. like it is like they just package that up and just take 2 of these and then you'll learn everything really fast. So
literally,
if you have enough adrenaline, we won't get into it too much, Chris, but
all right.
I'm just telling you that adrenaline is that's why doing it makes sense, and doing it in public makes sense, is because you will never learn as fast as naturally produced internal adrenaline. If that will increase it heightens your ability to learn, in my opinion. Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the stuff you cannot practice. You just can't, and you just
the good news is
have to do it.
The good news is you have a big group here that has done, among all of us, we've done tens of thousands of events. So what you do is you go out, you do the best you can, you ask questions as you're prepping, you go out and do the best you can. You write down, what I would recommend is writing down, and for all events, writing down things that you don't understand or that didn't work while it's happening. Don't figure out the solution, but write down, this didn't work, I don't understand why this happened, and then you bring those back here. And then we'll discuss them, and you'll learn about as fast as you can learn to do this. I mean, you'll go faster than anything out there that's formal. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the catchphrase I've used in my company in the past is like, "Well, we'll never do that again."
Right. Yeah.
Can't tell you how many times that's happened.
Well, I used to have a plaque on my office. When I had an office, I had a plaque on the office that just said "Iterate and dominate." Just like you iterate everything. I never do the same thing twice. Even if it's successful, I never do. Everything is, I think of the things that I want to do next, and then I do them all, and then I have a list of new things that I want to do on the next one. But I never. There's no repeat for me ever. There's no rinse. When people say rinse and repeat, I'm like, I don't know what that means. It's all going to be, I'm going to keep on just slowly turning these screws. Now I turn them slower. There's the first couple events that have this huge arc, and then after that, it just keeps on going up, but you're constantly tweaking, or I'm constantly tweaking, Jason, and then we'll move on.
It's also worth mentioning that there is no such thing as perfect production. And if you think that is, you're probably in the wrong business.
Right. Yep. Next question.
Moving on to Philip Oler, who asks from Kenosha, New York, working on a production with a few companies telling their story on Microsoft Teams. We'll ship webcam and mic for upgraded audio and video, recording remotely using an ATEM ISO. I want to record locally also. Recommendations on how to do this on a Mac and PC. I want to record the output of their camera mic.
Go ahead, Jason.
Isn't that what the ISO does?
It can. You can definitely have it record that. Record that locally.
The feed, right? Do they want ISO records of each individual person streaming in?
Yeah, you could probably do. The problem is that here's the challenge you have when you send it to somebody else, is that it can't be very complex because they have to do it. so you're not going to be able to. They're not going to necessarily want you to take over their screen and do a loop back and an audio hijack and like all these other things. That's not going to work for them. So, and you don't know if they're a PC or whatever. So what we've done for the mics is on the high end events is send the recorder out. So the mic that you give them goes into some kind of recorder. For us, it's been a mix pre, but you could use a Zoom, you could do whatever. But then set it all up, and all they have to do is hit record. In the mix pre, we literally put the naming into it so that when they hit record, when they upload the file, it's got the name and everything else, and it's all set up exactly the way we want. All they have to do is plug it in and hit record, and that's the way that we've done it. But again, that's a pricey solution. for that. I don't know a lot of other ones because it needs to go through some device that you're going to hit record on. Having it do it on the computer, yeah, if they can embed the audio into it, it becomes a science project really fast, to do that, because that's going to record their local video, but that's a screen scrape, Courtney. I mean, because they're got a webcam, so they're sending a webcam out, so it can't go in there. If they send an HDMI out, they'd have to. If they send an HDMI out, now you got a whole camera, so now you could record to.
Well, if they're using a separate video camera that's going HDMI into whatever they're sending,
I think they're sending a webcam out. I think they're sending a webcam out.
Oh, okay. So I thought you said HDMI.
Did you say HDMI? Did I misread that?
Mac and PC, so I assumed it was
webcam. So we're shipping a webcam and a mic for upgraded video. So webcam means that becomes very complicated to capture the video. The audio, again, there's ways to do it on a Mac or a PC. It's just that now you're asking the far end to do complicated procedures, and that becomes that becomes risky. Mickey and then Stuart.
Yeah, I think like if they're on a Mac, the simplest way to do this might be using QuickTime, record a movie, have the webcam as the source, and have the interface or whatever mic as the source for sound. But again, it's not like,
and then you're starting to
how
ask
much you can rely on that.
Right, and you start asking someone on a MacBook Air to be in Teams and record on QuickTime. You could end up with a whole bunch of things that don't work well.
Consume all their resources right away.
Right. Now, what you could do is, if you just do it over audio, for instance, you could kind of tweak it. You could have them just record to QuickTime, and then you're talking to them over a phone, and they're just talking into the thing. But you might want to see it, but you just have to decide what the resources are available. When you say Microsoft Teams, I also wonder whether you have a bunch of PCs in the mix, and so then I wonder whether that's going to become a whole thing. Go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, I'm going to give Philip an answer, but it is for experts sitting at the other end, not for
that's the problem.
Somebody who's got no technical knowledge. And that is, you can use the NDI Desktop Tools monitor to record, and vMix's NDI Desktop Capture to capture the contents of a window.
Right.
Best to be putting it full screen, obviously, but it's not something for average or ordinary people. Yeah. It's this sort of level of panel to get it to work properly.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is it doesn't sound like that's what they're doing. Greg and then Peter.
No, I was going to say just you could make it a lot simpler by taking Teams out of the mix.
It sounds like that's a requirement. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Well, I was just gonna make the point that having tried this with Teams or something similar to this with Teams, if you're not the owner of that administrator of that Teams environment, good luck, because it's probably been locked down if it's a client corporate environment. They've turned off, like in my case, my company's turned off NDI tools, so I can't extract the feed on my system, even though I have all the tools to do it.
Right. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Could you do a separate local record, send them a tripod mount for their phone, and have them just, while they're on the webcam, have their phone next to it filming them, and then you at least have that ISO record?
Yeah, I mean, we've done that a lot.
Framing mess.
We've definitely done that with camcorders where we have it right next to the webcam, and then they record it as a backup. Or we use it for the behind the scenes because we needed to use a webcam to for the event. But again, it becomes anytime you double end things with someone with a civilian, you just building a pipeline around that is complicated. Stuart.
Jeff Francis, the Mocos camera that you've got, can it record to the SD card at the same time as it's being used as a web camera? Because to my mind, that is the simplest solution, if it does it. If.
Yep.
I don't think in USB mode, no. Only in HDMI mode.
Yep. Next question.
Moving on, Mike Burns is asking, I'm starting to remote teach screen time and parental controls to desperate parents needing help. What's the best way to mirror or screen share my iPad, iPhone to my iMac? What's the ideal way to do this? Is QuickTime, NDI?
And by the way, I just want to go back to that question because something popped up in my head just before we did that last one. IPDTL looks like it has a video solution as well. But what it does do is audio, and what it'll do is locally, it'll let you do a low latency talk and it'll record locally. I know I've used it for audio, and it may be what you need, but its PR around video is very limited. So it says that it has video codecs, and so it may be able to do what you're trying to do. So now back to our regularly scheduled program. Go ahead, Jason.
I hate to answer the question with a question, but the answer here is going to be completely critical in the age of the iMac and the age of the iPad.
So the one thing that I'm looking at is OpenDNS is the thing that I haven't had time to dig into, but I'm going to be doing it because my kids are home all the time. There's two things for me. It's less of an amount of parental control over their screens and more of we turn the internet off all the time. Like they're on a network that I have control over. And so they have it's opened when they're in school and only opened in very limited amounts after that, so there's not a general access to the internet that they have, and I found that they calmed down and became, much more analog and, much more calm when they didn't have access to the internet all the time. And so
OpenDNS will absolutely let you do that.
So
it does take a little work though.
But we're basically setting up for all of that OpenDNS, and so that we can kind of lock a lot of the stuff down.
I don't think that's the question he's asking, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
I understand. I'm answering the question that he needs to ask because the screen share stuff is not going to really. I think he's going to have a hard time with the screen share problem.
I mean, I was able to kind of figure it out, and I do think that Jason's got a point as far as making sure everything's up to date and the latest software. Doing QuickTime and doing a QuickTime movie and then picking my phone as the source. It works sometimes. It's just a little janky, and I don't know if it's a cord or whatnot, but I'm assuming QuickTime's going to be my best option. I'm just.
Oh, you're trying to teach. You're trying to teach.
Yeah.
I was talking about controlling it. Oh, I see.
Oh yeah, no, I'm teaching. I'm remote teaching desperate parents who need to learn more about screen time.
Why are you not using the screen share? Why aren't you just screen sharing from Zoom?
Yeah, Zoom will do that.
No, I can, but I'm showing them the settings in an iPad and an iPhone because that's where most of the screen time, stuff is, and that's where everyone's running it.
Right.
Make sense?
So
yeah.
My advice would be record your screen. Sorry, go ahead.
There is a share screen, share your iPad within share screen. So I don't know if you knew that, but if you click on share screen, it'll say share your Apple device.
Did not know that. That's good. Okay, I'll check it out.
And then to get depending on how geeky you want to get, of course, you can do Lightning to HDMI into an ATEM Mini, or into something like that and use it as an input. And then you have a lot of control over how that looks. And so if it turns into a real business where you can have a $300 switcher, now you can sit there and cut to it and cut back and do all the things that you want to do, and it'll be a much better experience for them. So.
Yeah, no, I have 4 teenagers and I've mastered the screen time.
Yeah.
But right now I'm setting up a page where I'm just doing a tip jar just to get started. But yeah, eventually that's going to be my model because there's a lot of parents out there that need help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I would, if I was going to try to turn it into a business, I would get an ATEM Mini, and really make it a little nicer. Go ahead, Doug, and then Jason.
Yeah, there is another. If you want to share your screen on an iPad or iPhone, there's an app called NDI Capture that you can connect to whatever switcher that you like, and then you can see your screen and have them follow along that way.
Yep. Go ahead, Jason, and we'll move on.
Yeah, also, just if you really are looking for quality, record your screen. My guess is you're repeating yourself over and over again when you're teaching these parents. Record your screen, make a teaser, get your setup the way that you want it, and then just chapterify it. And that way you've got videos that's completely smooth, and and it will force you to stay on task.
I mean, think about especially if you've got it dialed in, think about flipping the classroom, so to speak, of videos of how to do it, and then follow-ups where you walk through with them. Because then they get to watch it, they get to think about it, they get to try it, and they get to ask you questions. And that might be a good way to do it. Short little videos that give them, this is how you do this basic thing, and you could end up with the big thing is if you put it on YouTube, you could end up with a lot of people watching it, and that creates a bunch of new, like if you just have YouTube videos on how to do, because I bet you there's a lot of parents right now searching for screen time. Yeah, and so you could end up with a lot of views on that right now. I would look more at putting it on YouTube and building a following around, managing that would be useful.
Yeah. No, that is my master plan. There's a tech group that I belong to of parents on Facebook that are having these issues. So I offered free help, and within 24 hours, I got 300 comments of people desperate.
Yeah.
So I was like, ooh, opportunity.
So a video of how to do that would on YouTube, and then you put it on that group, and then they're all going to start watching it and sharing it and everything else, and you could end up with a pretty good following, to do that, and then you turn that into something.
Yeah, no, that's the master plan.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
I'm going to support what Alex said because I have that, and so you just click a button on your ATEM Mini, and boom, there's your interface, and anything you do on the interface just goes straight out. It's a one button.
Yep.
So
next question.
Moving on. Mike Burns. Oh, wait a second. Mike is back with another one. I own Audio Hijack. Does Rogue Amoeba ever run specials on their software? I need a loop back, but I'm broke. Currently $99.
I think that they do specials every once in a while, but I don't know where they are. Go ahead, Greg, and then Jason.
Yeah, this is a wise guy answer just for Mike. If you go to Hank's Market in Twisp, I think they're only $98. It's only $98.
Jason.
I mean, maybe I'm sure he's correct, but my memory of it is that loopback costs significantly less than that, and the entire Rogue Amoeba package is $100.
Yep. All right, next question.
Hugo in Portugal says, will AI optimized codecs ever be used in broadcast? And then he has a link there for further research.
I wouldn't be surprised if we don't start
eventually.
Eventually, I mean, I don't know if
It'll
it'll
be
be used
invisible.
I don't think it'll be. Yeah, I don't think you'll notice it. I think it'll just be suddenly the video is a little better. I think that's probably the more likely thing is it happens on the back end. The hard part is how do you scale it? NVIDIA is really good at doing this for video conferencing, but then it requires their hardware. I mean, that's their business model. So the a YouTube or an Apple is going to look at, well, what do I do with that? So I think that I don't know if you'll see it in traditional broadcast, but in internet streaming, I think that you'll definitely continue to see the video get better and better with less bandwidth, and that just if it incorporates this stuff into it, more power to them. Next question.
Ken Jones in Seattle says, this morning when I launched Zoom, I found that roughly every 30 seconds, the audio went crunchy for the next few seconds. It was really annoying. A reboot fixed it. Is this a MacBook feature? Well, probably not a feature.
Every 30 seconds, the audio went crunchy. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
I would say it's almost certainly something to do with your network and also other stuff. You can actually go in through the web browser and you can state the packet importance that Zoom will place on your audio and your video. This is very, very low-level specific stuff. Also, you probably just did updates and your chain could have been messed up. But yeah, I would start with a network.
Pretty common for me to restart my computer. I'm having an issue with my Scorpio and with my USB pre that if I stay all day connected to the computer to Zoom, if I don't restart right before the show starts, they can't see it and it gets really slow and it gets bogged down. So I restart a lot. So that's I don't know exactly what that is. Something in the USB connection between those, but I mean there's some kind of USB negotiation with USB 3 that isn't working well. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to ask him. He doesn't say where his audio source is coming from, if it's coming in over USB or if it's coming from the computer itself. But a lot of times, in those kind of problems where it just goes crunchy every 30 seconds is some kind of USB port saturation problem, and something's caught in a loop that's feeding junk into the USB port, and rebooting flushes it all out.
Yep. Next question.
Garrick Parmalee of Sometimes here in the panel says, looking for
I think you had one
recommendation.
before that.
Oh, I'm sorry. James Babbitt of San Diego. The Dolby Summit content is available to watch now. The Atmos sounds excellent. Are the clips polished for watching after the event?
I can't answer that one specifically, but what I can say is in general, clips are refined for events. Like you update them. Many events will get updated. The keynote or something like that for many of the events that I've worked on might get updated 5 or 6 times in the first week. So you'll see a version up there somewhere on Akamai that's like more better, graphics that didn't quite make it in, things that you notice later. So it's not uncommon for keynote files or other files to be updated later in the event to better represent it. Live is live, and then you do what you do to make it better. The one thing I will say is that the content, the discussions for the Dolby Summit are amazing, and we're going to talk a lot more about Vision and Atmos, and I would highly recommend watching them. The sessions themselves have a lot of pretty interesting content, and it's a good way to get you started on thinking about it. But we're going to give you other opportunities to think about it soon. So definitely check it out. Next question.
Now we get to Garrick in Columbia, looking for recommendations of a network drive for several video editors and content creators to work off of.
So NAS. Any recommendations for a good NAS? Jason?
Yeah. I mean, are you trying to edit directly off of it, or is this for archive? I happen to think that Fenwick's solution is actually a much smarter one than, trying to keep everything spinning all the time.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I would, depending on your budget, I would take a look at older enterprise grade network attached storage from the likes of, say, Dell, or even like older HP stuff. Those usually have pretty solid backplanes where you can put 30, 48, 60, 64 drives in. And yeah, they go for pretty cheap, and they usually already come with SFP plus 10 gigabit fiber links that could go straight into your switch.
The one that I'm most familiar with, almost in the last 5 years, the only one that I've actually used in production is the LumaForge Jellyfish. That's all we've used for events, and so I don't have any other experience. That's the one we've used.
That's real money, by the way.
It is real money. So, but I'm just saying that if you're looking, I don't know what price point you're looking at, but that one is the one that we've used for. In this case, sometimes we'll have many people looking at that content, and here's where the NAS does make sense is when you have a huge amount of shared storage, a huge amount of data that everyone has to access. Their files are relatively light. You can't just move all that data around. You can't start moving 6 terabytes of core data from one computer to another to do the edit, especially as things are changing and updating. So you need a central place where all that exists, and then all these different projects are getting worked on. So there is a place where moving things around to different editors or moving it around to different artists doesn't make sense, because they have to have a unified connection between them. And so, but again, the Jellyfish is the only one that I have any experience with in the last 5 years. Go ahead, Guy, and then Stuart.
Yeah, the ones to look at are Synology and QNAP. We're currently using a Synology. And the other thing is to make sure that you can do 10G, because 10 gig, we're using iMac Pros, and a couple of the editors have those, and we could bounce files back and forth super fast. But then we had to put Sonic cards on older machines to get that 10G speed. Otherwise, it's just taking forever, and you're better off just walking the drive over. So I take a look again
it's
at
surprisingly,
QNAP and
it's surprisingly easy to saturate a gigabit Ethernet line, even with a good switch. It's just not a feasible thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuart?
Depending on the number of editors and whether it's on a local network, if it's really small and you're only working in HD, you can get away with FreeNAS and build your own. But a really good resource to see all the problems you can run into is actually Linus Tech Tips, of all people. He's got a whole series of videos where he's put really big NASs into different people's own setups and showing how long it takes for them to rebuild the data on them when a drive fails, what happens when you have a fire in the cupboard that they're stored in, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of videos there that are easily accessed that will show you all the things you can trip up on.
All right, go ahead, Fenwick.
I think there's no other industry where FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, plays a bigger role than in data storage. I think there's a lot of fear. I've talked about my systems of storing large amounts of data. I will say that in this group, Felipe from Prague, he's a super smart network guy. And if you are setting up some sort of a network thing, he's a good resource. He does it professionally. I've paid him to help us with stuff. He's a good, super smart guy if you're trying to set up something like a QNAP or Synology, or, the Jellyfish is super easy to set up. The other one's not so much.
Right.
But Felipe knows it all.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe we'll get him to talk. Well, maybe we'll drag Felipe on to talk about that. Next question.
Our own Stuart from Melbourne. Has anybody tried the external M2 RAID caddies, I think from StarTech.com, that use an eSATA connection?
Go ahead, Stuart. You want to elaborate?
I was actually going to just mention before we got to the question that it's coming up on quarter to the hour. If we wanted to check for Madeline and Sky's thing again.
I got it open.
Okay.
It's today, right? It's on today. Is that right?
Yeah, it's already played on the East Coast, going by the chat.
Yep. Next question.
Monitoring 24 hours early.
Wait, so I'll go back to Stuart's question. Jason, go ahead.
I mean, I immediately have questions when eSATA is concerned. That is such an old protocol that, just be so careful. You look at an eSATA cable the wrong way and you kicked it out.
I've actually never had any problems with them, but I use the lock-in cables. For me, the situation's a little odd. The media that comes with the AJA Scion camera is as worthwhile getting as a red mini mag. And you can infer all the negative you want. They do converters that will go in the slot on the camera and have either a CFast or an eSATA output. So I'm looking at that just so I can record ProRes 4444 in camera at 12 bits.
Without breaking the bank. No, that makes sense.
Next question.
Mike has a couple more in here. Mike Burns of Spokane. Starting a new podcast. What's the cheapest, easiest way to get a decent audio signal from my remote guest who's on the other side of the country and is tech challenged? He's not streaming live. FaceTime audio or via phone or Skype audio, something like that?
Look at that IP DTL as one thing to look at, because that's what it's designed for. There's also one that someone else used. What you're looking for is something that will let you double end. When you're doing the podcast as best you can, as far as cheap and easy, and then a good mic, a good mic on their end is a good mic and interface. For podcasts, when I'm not worried about video, and the Yetis are really, really good mics as far as just something to send out to someone, for sound. It's a little bit more expensive, but that's a good one. I'm trying to think of other ones that are the Nano, Yeti Nanos. Those are good too. Jason and then Courtney.
Cheapest and easiest. All right. So you both take your iPhone, you press record, and you basically just have a phone conversation, and then just link them together.
The other mic that I like a lot is the it's a little bit more expensive. It doesn't really change the price. The one that I carry around for podcasting is the MV51 from Shure. Small, compact, but it's still $150. So it looks like Guitar Center is selling them used for $99. But it's a good sound. Go ahead, Stuart.
Just following on from what Jason just said there, and yeah, I agree. The phone is the easiest way to do it. One thing about recording, though, just be aware there are differences where you go around the world as to how many parties have to agree to having the phone call recorded. In the US, I believe it's still single party. But
depends
here in
on
Australia,
the state.
Both people. Yeah, it's just something to be aware of.
And if you're go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So like super basic, easy. If I'm doing a weekly podcast, let's just say I don't have the stomach to send out microphones or anything like that. Are there any better like phone solutions other than what we just talked about?
The thing is that just remember that podcasts are listened to, and I wouldn't engage if I don't have a good mic. I wouldn't even bother. Like people, your listenership will, you get one chance to kind of get stuff out there. If you've got bad audio, don't do a podcast. You just don't do it. I won't listen to them. Like, I don't know how many people are like that, but I just like, if I got a really whatever, I mean, you could get away with that before, but now everybody's got good mics, and you don't listen to, no one listens to podcasts that have that's when you have 100 people listening. But if you really want to turn it into something, you have to have good mics. I mean, it's why we do a mic check every morning.
Oh yeah.
Because you have to have good audio.
I mean, if I had a co-host, then obviously yes, but I'm just talking about like weekly guests, if they're, specialists in a field.
Yeah, it's hard though. I mean, it's, again,
phoners.
I would, well, then what I would think about is still sending them out. Either sending something like that little Paulson headset mic, we'll clean up a lot, for $10, but you're going to have to commit to something, because if they just do their room noise, it's just really painful. I mean, they better be really good, to really good experts, or you're just not going to get, again, the thing you have to remember is it's not what people notice, because a civilian may not notice what that means. It's just how they feel. Like, you have to keep on thinking about how they feel. Do they want to listen to this? People have this amorphous Zoom fatigue. It's bad audio. It's bad, Zoom fatigue is bad audio. They don't define it that way because they don't have that definition. They don't have a definition for that. They don't understand what it is, but it's bad audio. Like, I'm very clear of that at this point. We sit here comfortably talking for 3 hours. Like, it's not about Zoom fatigue. It's about you not being able to, your brain having to work to hear somebody say something puts a lot of pressure on it, and it gets tired, and so it's exercising a muscle. And so by making it easy to listen to, with podcasts, the audio is everything. It's not just a little bit of something. And if you can't get the far end to have good audio, if it's roomy, if it's whatever, I wouldn't even bother to get started, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Again, these little Paulson mics, that type of thing, it's still an incremental cost for you. So you have to think about that. And maybe you can send it as a kit that they send back, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. So I was thinking about like a Zoom H1 with like tiny little, tripod, like desktop tripod.
Yeah. It's just a matter of making sure that the Zoom H1, making sure it's right up to them and that you're using that as the interface. If you're willing to spend that kind of money, absolutely. Like, you get to have a double end record. It's just that it's, as soon as you get into the H1, then get it up there and make sure that the audio is good, or don't, like, the competition's too high in podcasting now to have roomy audio or thin audio at this point.
I mean, I was thinking about, sending out like a Zoom H1 with this, and then do the initial recording via phone, but then have them send the files back to me, and then I sync them, and then I put it up online.
The big thing I recommend is always recording their side no matter what. So have that conversation, but find some way that they're going to send that audio back to you in real time, because I've had a lot of shows that can't get finished because they didn't send the file back. So you want to have something that you can grab onto and try to make that as good as possible. Go ahead, Courtney, and then Bill, and then Greg. Let's do pretty quick, because I think we've got a couple questions left.
I was going to suggest the Zoom F1, but it's a little body pack recorder. It has a USB output that works as an interface, but I don't think it'll record when it's sending out USB. And the other thing is, I'd use Zoom, because I still think it has the best quality and the lowest latency if you're not dealing with a lot of people on it, just point to point.
If you set them up with original audio and turn all the things on and make sure they have a headset in, you can get pretty good audio from it. But I would still record locally. If you
meant Skype, I'm sorry.
Zoom, but I think Zoom now is competitive with Skype when you turn all the buttons on. But you have to make sure that they have a headset in. They can't do open ear when you turn all the quality knobs up. Then you need to do that. But I do think, and then record that on Zoom, and then but you still want to double end if you can. But that, you probably could get a usable signal out of Zoom in that way. Bill, and then Greg.
Yeah, I think the headset mount of whatever you're using is going to be critical there, because you can never tell what the room is going to be like. So getting the mic capsule an inch from their mouth is going to suppress the room no matter how bad the room sounds. So I think that's your number one priority if you can't control where they're going to be recording.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, and also you could do a test. I know a few people who have gotten pretty good results by turning the Zoom on its side and having one of the channels, of the XY axis directed to the mouth. You have to cut off the other channel, of course.
Right.
But I know some guys who have done it that way.
Yeah. Next question.
This is the second one of Mike Burns. Just starting a Facebook page. Notice my uploaded video uploaded as SD. Is anybody using the Pro Tools on Facebook? SD video will drive me crazy.
And it didn't eventually go to HD?
Yeah, no, it stated SD, and then I think there was a pop-up even encouraging me to sign up for their pro version, which I'm assuming is like a monthly subscription.
The Facebook has a subscription for uploading videos?
Yeah, if you have a page, and then there's like a pro version of that page, which gives you more tools. And I'm just like scratching the surface here, so I don't know a whole lot about it, which is why I threw the question out there if anyone else is using it.
I admit that I haven't had to stream to Facebook for a long time. So, and I streamed, we streamed 3 or 4 a week for years. Once they changed the algorithm, 2017, that kind of knocked me out of the system. So,
Yeah.
it's not, Facebook isn't a really, I mean, I don't really view Facebook as a very viable platform for meaningful conversations.
Yeah, what I suspect I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a YouTube page, have them there, and then put the links to Facebook.
The problem you end up with that is that if you will be penalized on Facebook as far as
it looks like Stuart in Melbourne has the live video on.
Oh, there we go. Hold on. I got off to looking at something. I'm still seeing voting stuff. So,
one of our regular listeners posted the link on the webpage.
Are you able to get audio?
It's already been pushed online.
okay.
Yes, I can.
We'll see how it went.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to make sure I bring it up gently rather than... And I need to open the right window.
You don't have to worry about gently. Just turn it on.
Looks good, though.
Yeah. I have got a lot of windows here.
That I was going to be on
There
the
we go.
Today
There we
Show
go.
this
Okay, you should be
morning.
hearing it now.
Silly me. No, the whole thing has been one giant out-of-body experience.
For anybody,
It's
we played
crazy.
We played Leslie Odom Jr.'s song "Wait for It" this
Yeah.
morning, talking about voting. But what if for anybody that's like, oh my gosh, I want that love, or I want this career that I want, that fulfills me. What do you say to them?
I say always have hope. Never give up. I mean, the day that I started this channel, I was on my couch in my pajamas, crying audibly because the pandemic had taken my career pivot as a chef away and my wedding had been canceled. And I just handed my husband Sam the TV. We ran away and got married. And I handed him my phone and I said, shoot me, I'm gonna make some pasta. And 6 months later, here I am. It's nuts.
What about just the idea
totally
of
nuts.
meeting someone later in life? Because that's another thing. People say, well, maybe I missed that shot.
Our story is kind of interesting because we first met and fell in love in 1986, and he dumped me very unceremoniously, found me on Facebook, and 34 years later, we got married, and we'd always both been. It's kind of, it's like, even if it wasn't my story. So I want to talk to you about what I'm making today.
There's that.
That's right, but I can talk and cook.
Okay,
All right, show us.
Show us what you're making, because I think a lot of people want a dish to make to eat tonight. So tell us what we should eat.
This is the ultimate comfort food. It is based on, so I spend a lot of time in Italy. I have a house there. I work for Italian TV. And the combination of butter and sage is called burro salvia. And basically, you can put it on paper towels and impress your friends.
Your husband
So I
reflected.
decided to use butternut squash because I simply love it. And I think that butternut squash ravioli is something that is familiar. Really took it apart, and I'm putting it back together. I've made a sauce with caramelized
So she's
onions,
listening on
sage,
listening AirPods.
butternut squash, ricotta, milk, nutmeg, and I boiled my lasagna noodles, and I always do them 2 minutes less.
She's
than it
delightful. She's
says on the
delightful.
box because they're going to go in the oven. You don't want them to be mushy.
No. Somebody
And
likes a mushy
I
look.
make my sauce. Oh, if you don't want butternut squash, if for some reason you don't like it, you can use acorn squash, you can use pumpkin, or you can use canned. You can do the pumpkin spice lasagna roll-up. It's perfect for the season. But whatever you do, if you got the butter, you got the sage, you got the nutmeg, you can't go wrong. So I've made my mixture, and now I've got my noodles, and I've cooked them, as I said, 2 minutes under. I did them a little too much the other night, and they were too mushy. And when that happens, I get very depressed.
And how long do you cook them in the oven, honey?
25 minutes covered, and then you take the tin foil off, and in the last 10 minutes, you add more mozzarella and Parmesan than you think
show
is
us the beauty.
legal.
Yes, we need to see it.
We want more time with you.
Here we go.
Oh, let's see it.
Wait. Oh.
Here it comes. It's coming out.
Mad in the kitchen.
But you, hang on. You can get that. We got to see that. Careful.
Oh, man.
Okay. There it is.
Gotta get a gimbal.
Beautiful thing. And you've got your little roll-ups, which makes it just a little more fun than lasagna.
Okay, by the way, we love you.
We want you to come back.
To come here and host with us.
I will be back. I'm going to camp out at your door with my pots and pans.
All right.
I'm having the time of my life.
Oh my God, that was so fun.
We
love you. We're going to see you back here in Studio 1A soon. Get that recipe today.com/food. Okay.
That was great. That was
Yeah,
great.
that was very good.
She's
That was very
great.
good.
She's great.
You can tell she understands TV. Yeah.
Cooking with Cal. What are we making today?
Okay. All right. Let's turn
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I've got to get out of here. That was awesome. That was awesome.
It's still delicious.
Yeah. All right. I think we have to. I'm late for a meeting, so but that was worth looking at that hit. That's great. Yeah. And so I think that now Sky is on a rocket. Like now that he's on Today's show, they're gonna have to tighten up their whole. They have to tighten up all their production because now they're gonna get a whole bunch of new people. This is the challenge, by the way, is you get that break and you have to take advantage of it. So this whole like mix match of phones and things and everything else that they've been doing is gonna need to end. You know, that he's like, it can no longer be kind of a cobbled together thing because they have this opportunity right now to create a great show. But it's so that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the biggest challenge for Sky.
Well done to him for getting it to air that way. Very good.
No, it got. I think it went great. A gimbal would help.
Yeah,
as was
absolutely.
mentioned.
He wasn't even supposed to be doing it today, was he? He literally found out.
I think they were planning to record it and then not go live. So huge opportunity, though. I mean, I think that so we'll hopefully get some behind the scenes from Sky, and we'll figure out how we can help him. Get moving on it. But he's definitely got a moment, to have some fun. She's got a moment to build up. So incredible personality, and she's got what it takes to do this. So hopefully Sky will help her take advantage of that. So anyway, so we'll come together and figure out how we help them, tweak that and move it forward and see if we can get one of our members to be super successful. So anyway, more of that, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody. We'll see you all tomorrow, and hopefully everyone will have a good day. I don't want to talk about that, Chris. I don't care. So anyway, I will say the one thing I will say about the whole thing, everyone's all stressed about voting and everything else. I just want you to know no matter who you vote for, you're still my friend. I just think I think the insanity of people making decisions about who their friends are based on their politics is insane. Like you guys need to take a Ritalin, it's just a vote. It is not the end of the world. We live in a pretty calm country compared to where I've worked, in a lot of places. It's not that bad. So just calm down and the only politics I'm going to say is calm down and don't worry about it. It will turn out however it turns out, and the chances of your life changing dramatically are very low. So just, just take it easy. All right.